loading, so much more with Stevens Worldwide Van Lines. Quality right to the core with Stevens Worldwide Van Lines. Total customer satisfaction, Stevens Worldwide Van Lines.
Welcome to the quality. We apologize again for the technical difficulties that we had last week, but thank you for joining us today so that we can go through some best practices. So with that, we will do a scene 2, take 2. Once again, this is Joe Biskiner, and I'm here with my co-host Jim Welsh. Hi, Jim.
Hello, Joe.
We've got Robin Gasick and Peg Wilkin with us today to discuss some best practice in packing. So welcome, ladies.
Hello.
Hi.
I think where we cut off last time, Peg, was really with yours. We were going through the effect that the packing score would have on the overall score in the DP3 scoring process. So if you'd walk us through that again, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Just a side comment, we don't think that the technical problems were ours, but nevertheless seems kind of timely that if we didn't meet your expectations, we got a quality problem, and it can affect us in anything that we do. When we looked at, we started out looking at our scores on DP3 shipments, and just a side note also, right now all shipments are eligible to have a survey, whether they run under DP3 or under the old program, and the scoring mechanism of that survey is the same. And if you look at this chart, you can see that if we don't get a good rating on packing, the ability for us to get a good enough overall rating to get business is severely limited, if not out of the picture entirely. Right now, the program average score is 78.92. Now, I told you last week it was 79.46, but we got some revised numbers from the military. And that means that if we don't at least get a 78.92 average score, we know we're out of the ballpark on getting business, and we believe that based on where the scores are coming in, if we don't get an average of 83 to 85, we don't have any chance of getting any significant business at all in DP3. And so you can see by looking at this chart that just getting a 6, which is an acceptable rating on packing, has a negative enough impact, even if the packing is satisfactory, that we won't get up to that average rating that we need. And it also stands to reason that if we were marked down on packing, we probably aren't going to get all of our quality points for the final question that's worth up to 40, and that's the overall satisfaction question. So what does this all mean? But the point is, up until now, we've basically selected our origin and destination agents, origin in particular, based on who's on our letters of intent currently, and also who we have commercial agency contracts with. But as you can see, going forward, we're going to have to be a whole lot more concerned with what our scores are and who's making that number one number hit at least 9, if not 12 points, 12 certainly being what we're looking for. That is a perfect rating. If we don't select agents who can get us those numbers, then we're going to be impacting the entire van line and all of our agency family, because everybody is graded, all of our business, no matter what the origin is affected by the universal score that we get. So we're going to have to select agents who are going to be able to bring that business to the door by having a high enough rating.
Excuse me, Peg.
Absolutely.
You said some words that scared me in what you just talked about. You said, unless we achieve at least an 83 to 85 score, we won't receive any business. I want to make sure that everyone understands what that means. Last summer, we actually saw long-time participants in the DoD product line lose 25 to 35% of their market share. Now, not too many companies can stay in business losing that type of market share. So that is why we're talking about packing. And Peg's scores up there that we have as an example, and when you look at question 9, and that's worth 40 points, all of the surveys that I see coming back, when you're at 6 or lower on that packing, seldom do I see at 30 points up there. I'm lucky to see 20. So that drops us down into that 65-70% range. Well, we're a long ways from where we need to be able to participate in the business. And it's, with the LOIs going away, we can't emphasize that enough. We are truly being graded on the quality of our work.
That's right. I think it's important to note, too, that as the comments show, if we do everything else perfectly, but we get knocked down on the packing, you can't overcome that number. And I think it's also important to note that while I say we have to be at 83 to 85 to even begin to get decent market share, we aren't going to be happy there. That's not where we want to be. We want to be at 95 or better, just like we do with every other corporate account that we have. There's no reason, in my mind, why we can't shoot for exactly the same standards that we have on national account business. Now, it's going to be a little bit of a tougher sell because we think that our military customers maybe have some different expectations and grade us a little bit differently than the rest of the commercial population does. But we don't have to accept that. We can always strive to be the best and to be hitting that 95 number.
But that you compare that to national account business is very important and interesting, because when we did studies on national account business in the past, we found that the move counselor could overcome any issues that the customer had with the loading process and the delivering process. So the move counselor often could answer the questions or bring the customer to some point of ease. Packing is that one lasting impression, and we talked last week, that the customer probably thinks, if you did it wrong, I could have done it better, because I've done packing before. So we don't often get a chance to overcome that issue. For many of our customers, we're not performing the unpacking services, and that's when the sins of our packing mistakes are revealed. So while we might be able to overcome the fact that the crew didn't show up on time, maybe they forgot to put padding around something before they brought it out of the house, but when the dining room table ends up at destination, we're forgiven that sin. But when somebody's going out to the garage looking through one of 100 boxes trying to find that one item that is required, like maybe their remote control for their TV, that's when the disappointment just keeps ringing. And then, lo and behold, 10 days later, we start asking them to rate our services. So we've given them a long time to stew about going through 99 out of 100 boxes only to determine that we didn't fulfill our commitment. So,
well, and let's, if I can just tag onto that too, let's face it, from an emotional standpoint, most people are less likely to get emotional about a scratch on the table unless it really was great-grandma's dining room table, but they're far more likely to get emotional about packing damage, because what's in the boxes, it's the stuff that is much more up close and personal to you. And while we might dismiss the fact that a picture got the corner bent on it, if that was your daughter's 7th grade picture, it makes a big deal. It isn't even the money at that point. It's the emotional baggage of hurting something that may really mean something to me.
And the state of mind that the customer's in when they're performing a post-move survey for you is of the utmost importance.
Right. So we all agree the way to move our total customer satisfaction scores is by increasing our packing scores. So now let's talk about the way to move our packing scores. Jim, if you just walk us quickly through some different types of cartons that our agents need to make sure that they've got on hand and available to do the job right. You have to have the right tools. Is there anything up there that sticks out in your mind?
Well, they're all pretty standard, Joe, but one of the key things that we need to talk about here is your inventory process. We all know that in the economy today, you are not allowing yourself to have surplus inventory. So you're ordering maybe 2 times or even 3 times a week from your supplier. Going into the summer, and these are things that we're going to talk about at our next webinar about preparedness, you need to sit down and determine and look at last year's volume and sit down and take a look at how you can inventory to where you make sure you have the right materials on hand, that when you are loading your pack vans in the morning, you're not out there and using 4 5s and you need more 3.0s, or you ran out of mat cartons and all of a sudden you're telling the driver, okay, that's okay, go ahead and shrink wrap it, or stretch wrap it. You have the right materials to pack the goods. If you are doing packing oil paintings, you need to have that glycine. You just cannot put the old brown paper on it because you're going to have an effect on the oil. No, it's not okay out there to be packing Fragiles with the shipper's toilet paper. I'm not quite sure where that ever became popular, but I know that we've had a couple of our own training sessions, and we've had some of our participants raise their hand. And for one, if I was paying you $10,000 to move you, Joe, to move me, and you asked me if I could borrow my toilet paper to wrap my figurines, I'd have a hemorrhage.
I know where I'd tell you where you can put your toilet paper.
Yeah, right. So,
okay.
You have to have the right stuff, and,
Yep.
and that means and on hand and inventoried and out on job. And make sure that you have the, some additional packing material so that when you drive that 50 miles to that residence, it's not a matter that you ran out. So we'll review that more.
That's a good point, because one of the missions of this quality hour is to help our agents increase their profits. Okay, we know that most of these shipments are going to require things that are outside of just what's written on the paperwork. So a good rule of thumb is, take 20% more than what you need in packing material, because the bigger the shipment, the more likely they are that the number of boxes that have been listed on the cube sheet are not quite what you'll need. And the further away that the job is from your warehouse, you don't want to have to find yourself in a situation where you've got to go back to the warehouse to get packing material. You're just losing money there, and again, creating a bad impression with the customer.
Well, Joe, especially, in the DOD, we're packing 100% of the job. So, and for our corporate customers, too. So there's no reason not to have that. I think you get into the COD mode where the customer, well, we're only going to pack the Fragile. Well, you get there, well, they were too busy. The parents couldn't get it packed, so now here you go, you've got to pack it. And you do not have enough material in the truck, bang, there we go with a packing issue.
Right. But this isn't just all about what happens on packing day. This is also about what the initial surveyor can do, what the move counselor can do, what we can do to prepare the crew that's going out to do the packing to do the job right. So, Peg, would you walk us through some of the top issues that we can talk about in how to prepare the customer for packing?
Sure, and I think all of these apply no matter what type of customer we're talking about, whether it's DOD, National Account, or COD. We want to make sure that we remind the customer to remove any valuable items that they're going to be taking with them so that we don't accidentally pack the purse, the checkbook, the credit cards, the prescriptions, etc. And, also I think it's a good idea, in particular when the salesperson or survey person is out at the residence, to remind them not to leave valuables laying around that are highly pilferable. We hate to admit it, but human beings are human beings, and there's no need to give somebody a temptation that they might not be able to resist. We want to remind the customer to identify for us the high-value items that they've got so that they can be properly inventoried, packed, and sealed with accountable security seals, and remind them that it's what's high value to them. Some things have a high monetary value that the world recognizes. Other things have a high risk associated with them in terms of pilferability, but sometimes things are just valuable to that customer and not necessarily to the rest of the world. And I say don't argue with them about stuff they want to put on the high-value inventory, because it doesn't hurt anything at all to have additional items listed. You want to make sure that you put enough space around the items that you're packing to prevent damage. Probably the best examples of that would be some of the more fragile figurines that have unusual parts that might be sticking out at odd angles, lampshades, dried flower arrangements. I know we all love them, but after all, we're the professionals. They're supposed to know exactly how to do these things. And by the way, if you don't know how to pack those things, you might want to come to our packing boot camp, because we're going to show you how to pack them. Well, plug it.
All
right.
Peg, this next item is very, very important. We see the mixing of rooms comment on our customer evaluations all the time, and the customers get very, very upset and distraught about the rooms being mixed, especially at the time of unpacking when they're trying to locate specific things. So it's very important that if you're packing a room and you have some room left in the carton and you want to add some items from a different room, please get with the customer, talk to the customer, and let them know the situation. Ask them what room you would like them to mix the items with so that they can easily identify them at delivery, and then certainly be sure when you're labeling the carton that you label it as well, that they're items from 2 different rooms. That is the biggest complaint that we do have about the packing. It's not always damage, but it is the inconvenience the customer faces on trying to locate things at delivery.
Let me step back for a second on the padding and excess paper. It's our opinion that any customer that's paying for their own packing, or in the case of military customers where they're paying by virtue of their weight entitlement perhaps being exceeded, they need to understand why we put padding layers in a carton, because their perception might be that we're trying to do something that's going to cause them to pay more or add to the weight of their shipment, when in fact the proper way to pack a dish pack, for example, is to have that layer of crushed newsprint on the bottom of the carton and again on the top of the carton to prevent the items from shifting around in the carton and provide that shock layer, if you will. The same thing goes for how we wrap things. We want to make sure that the customer understands how we're going to wrap dishes, and that perhaps they've moved in the past and not individually wrapped each item. And that is, in fact, what we're supposed to be doing, by way of reminder. You don't just stack things together and not wrap each individual piece. But they need to understand why we do that, because in a long-distance move, if you don't have paper around fragile items or easily breakable items, any shock to the load is going to not only break the first piece, but transfer to every item underneath that if you don't have something in between. You might be able to get away moving across town without doing that, but I guarantee if you're trying to move across the country, first time you go over some railroad tracks, we're gonna know that we have a problem. A lot of customers don't understand the difference between packing and loading, and why is that important to us? Because in the rating of the carrier, they might identify loading the truck as a packing action, and I think explaining to the customer what the 2 functions are will allow them to differentiate if in fact they have problems, or better yet, if they want to give high praise to one agent over another, we want to know who that is. If the customer has never had a professional pack job in the past, it's an important thing to discuss with them. Probably the salesperson or the survey agent would be the best place to do that, not necessarily your actual packing crew. But if you've never moved with a professional mover before, the way that packing is approached is very different than the way you or I would do it individually. First of all, it's a far more mechanical process, not necessarily dealing with what are each of these items and what do they mean to me, but what's the best way to utilize the cubic dimensions of the carton that we're putting the goods into. And explaining that to the customer up front might alleviate any concerns that they've got, and certainly may mean that we create the proper expectations so that they're not surprised by something later on. And then finally, we want to talk about what does it mean to unpack, so that all DoD customers are entitled to a full unpack. Most of our national account customers get an unpack. COD customers not necessarily, but unpacking does not mean cutting off the bottoms of the boxes and lifting the box off and letting the contents spill out. Unpacking means properly opening the box and placing the items on the nearest available flat surface. It's not put away, but that they need to understand what that process involves.
Meeting and exceeding the customer's expectations is the most important way that we're able to get good customer satisfaction scores. So the salesperson and the move consultant work very hard to talk with the customers about their expectations, what's important to them, and so we need to make sure that information is relayed to the packer, driver, crew member. So if you have, if your salesperson is using a customer expectation sheet, or we have the service information screen that is sent along with the driver paperwork, please make sure that you take the time to review those expectations with your crew members. The customer gave us those expectations. They expect us to meet them and exceed them. So please take that extra time to do that. Also, we want to encourage everyone to have the salesperson remind the customer that they need to be present at the residence during packing. We understand people are busy and they need to be at work, but it's important that the customer is there so that they can answer questions that may arise for the crew, so that they can be there to make the decision of what boxes are going to be mixed if we need to in regards to what rooms, and also to ensure that the customer has all of the items they're taking with them out of the way, so that no items get accidentally packed up by the crew. And then and also we want to stress that it is okay for the customer to ask the crew to label boxes in certain ways. Now, we understand that it would be a little over the top if the customer wanted the crew to label every single thing that goes into the box, but we do want to be courteous to the customer. They are paying us to handle their move. We want them to be able to have boxes labeled in certain ways if they choose, and especially in regards to first day services. It's important that they can gather those boxes at delivery that are the most important boxes that they get unpacked for themselves right away to get settled.
And just please remember that any feedback that you get from the customer, either written or verbal, you can always put into the Stevens system so that each service provider down the line has access to that information as well. If it happens to be a document and you'd like to scan that and upload it to the registration, that's available as well. If you have any questions about how to do that, please contact the help desk and they'd be happy to walk you through that.
And also, Joe, while your offices are performing surveys for a military move or a headquarters move or a move center move, please be sure that if there are customer expectations, put that on the survey information so that that can get fed back to our move consultant. It's very, very important. Thank you.
So, if we learned a lesson, it's fill out the customer expectation sheet. We had a question that came up about, do we have a sample of one? Yes, we do. I believe it's on SVL Info, but we'll send a copy of one out with the feedback from this show so that everybody knows what they look like.
Joe, my eyes are being tested. I see comments coming in from our listeners. Do we want to share some of those comments on there?
So far, what I'm seeing as coming through, Jim, is what we're getting through onto this next screen, so our listeners are anticipating some great content.
Well, let's practice some common sense here.
All right.
You know, what's no nonsense? Well, let's talk about common sense. And I know that from my days as a general manager, usually we could determine after we took someone through training in about 2 to 3 weeks whether or not they were going to have the gift to be able to pack. You know, not only physically being able to do it, but having the mentality and the common sense to go in the home and get the packing done. So, you know, when we talk about packing, I want to make one thing, one other comment here too, is about marking crayons, which you can purchase from Victory or any supplier. They're a thicker crayon that literally it's a dark color so that when you are marking the boxes properly, they can be read from a distance in the truck or in the house, so, which goes a long way when you start talking about the room, misplacement of the boxes in rooms and what have you. So when you try to read things with a marking pen or a pencil, it just doesn't cut it. So invest a couple of bucks in the marking crayons, and you'll see that it works out very well. Does it make sense to mix cartons? I think we could all have a resounding no here. Even sometimes when you ask that customer, is it okay to mix bedroom 1 with bedroom 2? They forget you asked that question. So now here at destination, they go, what were they thinking? Why would they mix this up? This came from the nursery, and it's in the master bedroom.
And that's probably even more true, Jim, when a shipment goes into SIT and it's 4 or 5 months later. I'm lucky if I remember next week what I did this week, you know.
Excellent point. So, I mean, you know, again, if you have to top off the box with some additional paper, then go ahead and do it. Mixing rooms, as you heard Robin spoke of earlier, is a big no-nonsense, lack of common sense practice, so we need to get away from that.
But let's talk about the specific right here, Jim, because I know this is something that when I see comments like this, it just makes me cringe. Think about what you're putting together. The example we've got about the toilet brush with the pots and pans, I wish that was an exaggeration. I wish I could say that would never happen. But we all know, we've heard and read and seen pictures.
Wish had it not come from an actual response.
Exactly. And odder things than that, where you just want to go, come on, pretend this is your own stuff. Would you do this with your own stuff? Would you do this if you thought your own husband or wife was going to be the one opening that carton? Think about that.
Yeah, you know, too often someone's packing in the kitchen that doesn't know any better, and underneath the sink, people seem to keep all their cleaning supplies, correct? Well, in the left upper cabinet, they have their cereals and their dry goods. So what ends up getting mixed together, right?
Right.
Lack of common sense plays a negative role again. So, I mean, these are all things that we'll be talking about in the packing boot camp, and get registered today, and we'll talk more about that later. You know, using the correct boxes for the correct items to be packed. You know, that's why we have different size boxes. So you need to know and train properly in terms of what goes into each particular box. A real pet peeve of mine is when I see a claim and I see comments on mattresses. Not only the fact that we didn't protect them before we moved them out of the house, but I know it's a big thing in the field, especially if you run out of mats or they forget, the packers forget to put them on the truck. They get to residence, and the customer is going to continue to sleep on the bed until the driver comes in the morning. The driver rolls in. There are no mat cartons. That's a big problem. Mattresses are big claim items, and let's face it, when someone sees their mattress go out of the house not protected, it gives them kind of the skeevy-heebies, you know. So, big item. You want to get a negative remark on your packing? Just fail to protect the mattress as it goes out of the house. Any comments any further on that here? We have another screen I guess we go to. Yeah, oh, here we go, the parts box.
Can I jump in on that, because that's Peg Wilkins' pet peeve. Now I'm putting my claims hat on.
Okay.
I know there are a lot of carriers out there, maybe not a lot. There are some carriers out there that authorize the use of a parts box. That is, that you take all the hardware from all the things you took apart, allegedly put them in individual bags, and then put it all in one box. This is what I think that leads to. A, we lose that box. We now have gone from a single item problem to a catastrophe, because now we can't put anything together. And B, when I have seen this used, I've seen people whose idea of a parts box is just dump everything in together, and now I've got this gigantic jigsaw puzzle to try and figure out what goes to what. Therefore, I believe that the tried and true method of using a parts bag, attaching the hardware to the item from which it came, you can't beat that. That's the best way to go, and that's our policy. We do not allow the use of parts boxes for that reason.
Yeah, you know, what I've seen a lot of, too, is if, for example, maybe if you have a pack crew out there the day before that may have a challenge in terms of taking a big mirror off of a dresser. The problem we have is that they forget to leave behind a parts bag necessarily for the parts to come off. They fail to communicate that to the driver in the morning when he picks up his paperwork. And then it becomes a little bit of a negative conversation item in the home, which is something we do not want. So the communication process and the packing on what took place the day before, when you're talking to the van operator in the morning when he's picking up labor at your location, communicate with him. Don't just let them walk in blind, because that is where the problems and the conflicts begin.
You know, just a point here. When you're in loading the day after the pack crew's gone through, and maybe things didn't go 100% the way that you would do, don't point that out to the customer. Don't say those guys should have done this. Let's just fix the problem and write this for the ship for the journey on to the next port.
Yeah.
You can let your dispatcher know or get back to the agent, but putting parading our uglies in front of the customer never helps anybody. Take care of the problem and then address it behind the scenes where it needs to be fixed.
Yeah, if you go out and you pack 100 cartons or more than was on the estimate, you need to communicate that to not only central operations, you need to communicate to the driver that's going to load that shipment. And at that point in time, the cat's out of the bag. We need to make sure that we're providing a great service for the customer at all times, and we'll work our own issues out in the background with one another.
I just want to encourage everyone, too, in using the parts bags, especially on the beds. Nothing worse than the shipment getting delivered and the customer's beds cannot get set up. If it's an end table, that's one thing, but we will not allow their beds to not be set up. So if we cannot find the parts to the beds very quickly, on corporate customers, we will call third party, and we will have the parts purchased and set up, and then that claim gets charged back. So it's very, very important that you do use those parts bags and attach them very well to the bed parts so that can be put together.
We do that same thing on military shippers as well, and let's take it one step further. If we have a baby crib that we can't find the hardware, you folks need to know the hard, cold truth. We are probably going to be buying a new crib unless we can readily identify the exact hardware that goes with that crib, because the liability question, just the emotional issue of if you put a crib together wrong and it could potentially cause harm to an infant, we're not going to go there. We're going to buy a new crib if we absolutely have to, rather than try and jerry-rig something together.
I like this next item on the filler. It reminds me of a time that I went into our bathroom, and the floor had just been washed, and I was really proud and showed my wife how I'd used towels, put towels down so I didn't get the grass stains on the nice clean floor, only to find out those were the guest towels. So she wasn't real happy that my thinking, here, I did something great. I didn't get the floor dirty, but I think I used the wrong material to protect the floor. So be careful about that when you're using items to fill around other items in boxes.
Drapes are not cushioning material, bedding's not cushioning material, clothing's not cushioning material.
Paper is.
Paper is, yeah, very good, yeah.
The proper type of paper.
That's right.
You know, you can only expect what you inspect, so one of the things that you have to remind your crew leaders on your pack crews, you have to periodically walk through that home and survey what's being done, because we all know that you're going to probably have different levels of packers on a crew at times because of how busy you are. So you may have someone that's fairly new working your wardrobes or working your book boxes. You still need to inspect what they're doing. You just can't let the day go by and hope everything's fine and say, ask for your carton count at the end of the day from people. So we find that when those crew leaders that inspect the job throughout the day, higher degree of customer satisfaction, higher degree of a quality work performed. You know, it's a matter of common sense. And if you exercise common sense, and I know this is a big one, it's amazing how we can just improve our scores in packing.
You know, one thing we don't have on the chart here, and again, I'm going to come at it from a claims perspective. It's been our policy for a long time, but we don't see it happening as often as we like, that when you're packing CDs and DVDs, you should check the boxes that they're in to make sure that there actually is a CD or DVD in it. Now, if you've got somebody that's got, you know, several hundred or maybe several thousand CDs, do you have to check every one? No, but you sure can do a random check, and that tells you if the customer has taken them out and has them in a CD changer or in wallets that they keep CDs in elsewhere. Then if the jewel case arrives at destination empty, we don't leave ourselves exposed to a claim when in fact the CD or DVD was someplace else in the shipment. And then finally, as a part of the packing process, you should be counting the CDs and DVDs that are going in the box. Otherwise, if that box is missing, and we can't identify how many were in that box, we are pretty much left wide open for the customer telling us whatever they want us to believe was in that box. So do the count. It always pays off. On this comment on the junk drawer, too, I think we'd gotten some feedback last week from one of the folks that was listening in, that they talked about taking the junk drawer contents and putting them in plastic bags, like Ziploc bags, so that they're easily packable and they don't end up as debris in the bottom of a box, but you don't have to individually deal with each item. So, you know, if you're talking about a drawer that's filled with pens and pencils and staplers and whatnot, taking a supply of Ziploc bags might be a really great time saver.
Yeah, let's move on to the next slide there. We just talked about preparing the house a little bit for packing. As we all know, the Stevens Home Protection Kit is something that is required in all certified or qualified Stevens equipment that's out there on our job. So it's important that you have the proper equipment to protect the house, because you are the first frontline service provider showing up. So that professional image, that first positive professional image, is coming from you and your crew. And it begins by the time you knock on the door, introduce yourself, and while you're walking through that house with that shipper as to check out things that are to be packed and ask the right type of questions, your crew is protecting the house. So very important. I know that there are some concerns out there of, is it okay, what type of flat surfaces can we use to pack on versus turning some boxes upside down and making a packing table. You know, some of my experience has been with the dining room. We remove all the chairs, pad wrap them, protect them, and get them out of the way so we're not walking around them. Any type of anything else that might be on the surface of a china hutch or I forget what you call the other. Peg?
Hey, I'm at,
Oh, thank you for hanging me out there. Okay, so anyway, my point is, yeah, the buffet. That's where we're going, isn't it? No. See, you know, my men have asked me, is it okay if we pack on the dining room table? I said it is only okay if that shipper has the pad that they bought with that, and you take our clean pads and you wrap the top of that table and pack on it. It's a nice, firm, strong base to pack that dish pack. It's close to the area where you're transferring the dishes to the table. So yeah, yes you can, as long as you protect the surface. Whatever surface of that customer that you're packing on, you need to protect it properly.
But that's really probably the least desirable surface to use if you have another option. Yeah. Because, you know, you get a lot of these tabletops that have a lacquer finish on them. Even the pad is going to leave potential marks on it, or if you put a piece of cardboard down, you're going to have fine surface scratching that looks like you took sandpaper to the top of the table. So unless you really have no alternative, you really shouldn't use a finished piece of wooden furniture as your packing surface.
Okay.
Well, you guys are great experts, and we've learned a lot about some best practices, but I'm a hands-on guy, so I need more. You know, you can only learn so much about packing from somebody telling you how you ought to do it. The best way is to get your hands in there and start doing it. So what can you offer our agents?
Well, I'm going to tell you, Joe, what you see up on that screen there is the first packing boot camp.
Booting cap packing.
That too, that Stevens has ever done. So there's no way that you can improve anything without training and commitment. So when you take that and you combine that and you take a look at what we're, as a van line, putting together on May 14th and 15th in Saginaw, Michigan. Yes, I said Saginaw, Michigan. We promise you that the snow will be gone. We have a great facility lined up, the Sheridan 4 Points.
Jim, you got to have a typo on there.
What's
is that a typo? It's free?
Oh yeah.
Are you kidding me?
No, don't tell Maury.
We're
yes.
giving this away? Holy cow!
Yeah, that's how much we believe in training. But anyway, the first 50 agents that sign up and send a person that we can train that will be going back to your business and become your in-house trainer, Yes, all you do is provide that plane ticket or gas and get them here, and we'll provide them with the room, the food, the beverages, light entertainment, and hands-on training, on how to pack. We've got many of our van operators that will be coming that we will have as instructors, and people that have done a great job for us. They have good packing quality and customer service ratings. They will be coming in. We'll have this set up in terms of workstations, where it's going to be nothing but hands-on. We'll be talking about a professional image. Peg Wilkin will be talking about all the paperwork involved and the things that we need to make sure that we're doing relative to that are all important to the packing side of things. And this is something that we're going to do every year, and the reason being is that we understand the turnover of personnel in our industry. And we had a huge discussion on this, I know, in our management meetings when we wrapped our heads around this and said, you know, we're going to take the initiative on this and we're going to train, but you just don't train once. And we understand that you have turnover in your staff. The reason we're holding it in the middle of May is because maybe that key person that you're going to have work with your folks and training your people up, maybe they're going to school right now. They may not be available until the middle of May. So, you know, we're very excited about this, and I think as a Stevens agent family, take advantage of this. Take advantage of this. You'll be receiving personal invitations and emails from myself all week this week. Do not hesitate to sign up. And I know we fixed some of them out early, and there was a big picture of me, and I'm sorry about that. I'm not running for office. But our marketing people got me corrected on how I was sending those out. Thank you very much. So look how to register. You can go right on there. You click on that link there and make note of that and get yourself registered, because the first 50 agents, Peg, they participate at what cost?
For free.
Free. I feel like a salesperson.
Okay. Thanks for that, Jim. Make sure everybody marks their calendar for May 14 through 16 here in beautiful Saginaw, Michigan.
Great opportunity to meet everyone in operations and people there at headquarters, so take advantage of that.
Maybe you can even show us some neat tips and tricks.
Oh, we'll have a best practice and brainstorming session.
Great. This is that time of the show where we like to give you the opportunity to ask any questions. So raise your hand or type your questions in, and we will be happy to answer those. If we've missed any of the best practices for packing, please do that as well. I do see a couple of questions up there. One is about if we cannot attend a packing boot camp, will it be videotaped or a DVD? There are plans in the works to do some video training or some more electronic training for packing. Not sure that we're going to be able to produce a viewable compact video from this training session or not, but we'll video whatever parts that we can, and we'll put those out for people to see.
Oh, interesting comment on that one. You know, we really had heavy discussions if we could take that and put a video together, but with its format, we want a hands-on. We want people there, because you cannot assume that people are going to be looking at videos. Now, we will have training items put together, but this is an opportunity to train your trainer. It's free. Register.
Right. I see a question from somebody about, will this be available to our military agents? We are limited to about 50 agents. Once we've given all of our prime agents an opportunity to sign up, then we will open that up to our military agents. We see a question about, and it shows interest in the boot camp, is the airports to fly into for Saginaw. Saginaw's got an airport right here. It's MBS. You're welcome to use that one. Also, we're only 40 minutes from Flint, and really about an hour and a half from the Detroit airport. So they're all real easy. We're real easy access here, and plenty of options.
And if you're coming by private jet, you can land on Morley Drive.
Oh, here's a good pointer. I've got a comment up there on best practices. Send rug protection with the packing crews. Bad weather, carrying supplies in or a dirty or dusty location. Again, remember your Stevens Home Protection Kit and always protect the home and make sure that you're using the materials appropriate for the surface.
Well, we have rug runners in the protection kit, correct, Greg?
Absolutely.
Right. So I mean, we you know, if you need to triple the linear footage that you have in rug runners, it would be something very wise to do.
Well, it's interesting. That question seems to indicate to me that there's some notion that we use the home protection kit only on load day, and I think the home protection kit is just what it says. You protect the home whenever we're in the home. So we could be needing to use the kit from day one of packing based on bringing things through hallways, et cetera, doorways. So use all of the tools that we've got available to do the job to protect the residents 100% of the time.
Overriding is that we are all an extension of each other. So the impression that we leave on each day that we're in the customer's home is attributed to everyone that that customer comes in contact with. So we all should be doing whatever we can to make sure that the customer has a pleasant experience and receives a wow moment.
Yeah. I know someone made a comment about our marking crayons. They come in 16 different colors, okay?
That sounds like a Crayola ad here.
Yeah, I've got stock in that. No,
Yeah.
but just call Victory Packaging or one of your suppliers. You can also buy them at Home Depot.
How are we doing on questions?
Looks like
All
we've
right.
answered them.
All right, looks like we've gone through all the questions. So let's just look forward to our next show. Jim, I see the calendar that comes up shows that our next show should be on I think that's the third Wednesday of April. That would be April 21st. It's a theme that we have going on. Third Wednesday at noon Eastern Standard Time, and we're going to talk about peak season readiness. This is our time to shine, folks. It's coming up. So we've got to dust ourselves off and get ready for going from that time of year when we were looking for the next order to wondering how we're going to find enough time in the day to perform everything that we need to get done. So we're going to just be walking through some of the ways to make sure that you, your staff, your equipment, your yard, your attitude, your salespeople, your packing material,
Uniforms.
how to make sure that you're ready. What's that checklist to make sure that you're ready for when that peak season hits? So we look forward to seeing you on Wednesday, April 21st at noon for the next TCS Quality Hour. With that, I'd like to thank our guests. Peg, Robin, thanks again.
Thank you.
Jim, always a pleasure to co-host with you.
I love to do things twice.
Yes. Everybody, we're signing off now, so have a great day.
Thank you very much.